On a sunlit Tuesday morning in the palace courtyard, a group of 34 teenagers from St. Bartholomew's Academy shattered the serene atmosphere with their rowdy arrival. Their navy blue blazers, a stark contrast to the disciplined elegance of the Royal Guards. Among them, Jason Harrington, a 16-year-old with designer shoes and a chip on his shoulder, saw the guards' scarlet tunics and bearskin caps as a joke, sneering, active-duty mannequins, standing around like furniture with feathers on their heads. His entourage laughed as he mocked the changing of the guard ceremony, goose-stepping in a crude imitation, while tourists looked on in disgust. Egged on by a bet from his friends, £50 to make a guard break formation, Jason devised a plan to trip one, pretending to be distracted by his phone as he stepped into the guard's path. He assumed the soldier, bound by ceremonial stoicism, would either stop or stumble, proving his point about their ridiculous role. But Jason underestimated the guards' discipline, honed through years of combat training in places like Afghanistan and Iraq. Guardsman David Mitchell, with split-second awareness, adjusted his march by a mere 3 inches, a move so subtle it was invisible to the untrained eye. Jason, expecting resistance, found only air, his momentum sending him sprawling onto the ancient stones. His phone skidded with a crack, his ego bruised worse than his body, as the guard continued his perfect march, unfazed. Laughter erupted from Jason's own friends, their phones capturing his fall, while tourists shook their heads. What began as a disrespectful prank met the unyielding discipline of a true soldier, setting the stage for a lesson Jason and his classmates would never forget, proving that true strength doesn't flinch, even in the face of childish provocation. In the sun-drenched courtyard of the palace, where the Royal Guard's scarlet tunics gleamed against the ancient stones, Jason Harrington's failed attempt to trip a marching guard set the stage for an unexpected response that left everyone stunned. The 16-year-old sprawled on the ground after his miscalculated stunt, his designer shoes slipping and his phone skidding with a crack, had expected the guard to falter, proving his taunt that they were mere active-duty mannequins. Instead, Guardsman First Class David Mitchell, the lead guard, executed a response that shattered Jason's arrogance and captivated the crowd. As Jason scrambled to his feet, blaming the guard in a desperate bid to save face, Mitchell did the unthinkable. He broke protocol. The Queen's Guard, known for their unyielding stoicism, standing so still that birds might perch on them, rarely deviate from their ceremonial duties, so when Mitchell halted his march and approached Jason, a ripple of whispers spread through the tourists and students alike. Standing precisely 3 feet from the teenager, his posture ramrod straight, Mitchell's presence was no longer ceremonial but pure military authority, his bearskin cap casting a shadow that seemed to weigh on Jason's shoulders. When he spoke, his voice carried a quiet power that needed no volume. Guardsman First Class David Mitchell, formerly of the 1st Battalion. Afghanistan, 2 tours. Iraq, 1 tour. 6 years of active combat service before my current posting. The words landed like a thunderclap, each fact a stark contrast to Jason's childish prank. Mitchell continued, his gaze laser-focused, recounting how he'd pulled wounded comrades from burning vehicles under enemy fire and made life-or-death decisions in combat zones, experiences Jason couldn't fathom. The guard's revelation wasn't just a rebuke. It was a bridge to understanding, showing that the uniform Jason mocked was worn by a warrior who'd earned his place through sacrifice. For the students of St. Bartholomew's Academy, who'd laughed at Jason's earlier mockery, this was a turning point. Mitchell's unexpected decision to speak transformed a moment of disrespect into a lesson on the depth behind the ceremony, leaving Jason visibly shaken and his classmates in awe. What began as a dare to disrupt a puppet show became a profound encounter with a soldier's lived history. setting the stage for a lesson that would change Jason and his peers forever. As the dust settled in the palace courtyard after Jason Harrington's humiliating fall, Guardsman David Mitchell turned a moment of teenage disrespect into a powerful lesson on the weight of tradition, revealing the profound history behind the Royal Guard's ceremonial duties. Moments earlier, Jason had mocked the guards as robots in doll costumes, his exaggerated goose-stepping and taunts about their bearskin caps. What poor animal died to make that thing? Drawing laughs from his St. Bartholomew's Academy classmates. But when Mitchell broke protocol to confront the 16-year-old, standing exactly 3 feet away, with the authority of a combat veteran, he shifted the narrative. His voice, steady and commanding, carried the weight of centuries as he explained the significance of the uniform Jason had ridiculed. "This uniform is not a costume," Mitchell declared, gesturing to his scarlet tunic. "It's a symbol of over 3 centuries of service to the crown." He pointed to the bearskin cap, which Jason had called a feather duster, revealing its origin, a tribute to the defeat of Napoleon's Imperial Guard at Waterloo in 1815, where soldiers under British colors died to secure the freedoms Jason took for granted. The cap, weighing over 3 pounds, wasn't just decoration, it was a badge of honor, a tangible link to ancestors who'd fought for liberty. Mitchell's words painted a vivid picture. The precision Jason scoffed at, the guards' ability to march in perfect unison across the courtyard's ancient stones, mirrored the discipline that kept soldiers alive in combat zones like Afghanistan, where Mitchell himself had served 2 tours. "History isn't just in books or museums," he told the students, his gaze sweeping over them. "It's alive in traditions like this." For the 34 teenagers, who'd arrived rowdy and dismissive, this was a revelation. The changing of the guard, which they'd seen as a quaint spectacle, became a living connection to generations of sacrifice. Soldiers who'd parachuted into hostile territory, trudged through snowy mountains, and stood shoulder to shoulder with allies. Jason, his earlier arrogance replaced by a bowed head, absorbed the lesson alongside his peers, their phones now forgotten as they listened to Mitchell's eloquent history lesson. What they'd mocked as outdated pageantry was now a bridge to the past, a tradition that carried the weight of honor, discipline, and the blood of those who'd fought for it, leaving an indelible mark on their understanding. In the aftermath of Jason Harrington's failed prank in the palace courtyard, Guardsman David Mitchell transformed a moment of mockery into a profound lesson in respect and understanding, reshaping the perspectives of 34 St. Bartholomew's Academy students. Jason had started the day sneering at the Royal Guards, calling them active duty mannequins, and staging a ridiculous goose-stepping imitation, his classmates laughing as he mocked their bearskin caps and stoic march. His attempt to trip a guard, part of a 50-pound bet to break their formation, ended with him sprawled on the ancient stones, his phone skidding and his ego bruised. But what followed was more impactful than his fall. Mitchell, a combat veteran who'd served in Afghanistan and Iraq, broke protocol to confront Jason, standing exactly 3 feet away with a presence that commanded silence. "You didn't think," Mitchell said, his voice calm but firm. "You saw the uniform, the ceremony, the tradition, and considered it something to mock rather than something to understand." His words cut through Jason's bravado, addressing the root of the disrespect, a lack of understanding. Mitchell then offered the students a rare gift: context. With military precision and surprising eloquence, he explained the Guards' role, detailing their rigorous selection process. Only soldiers who'd proven themselves in active combat, like his own tours pulling comrades from burning vehicles, could join. He described the discipline behind their duties: the bearskin caps, weighing over 3 pounds, and shifts standing motionless for 2 hours, regardless of weather, as a reflection of battlefield readiness, not mere pageantry. Disrespect usually comes from misunderstanding rather than malice, he noted, softening his tone, and his lesson hit home. The students, who'd arrived rowdy and dismissive, now listened intently, their phones forgotten. Even Jason's friends, who'd egged him on, whispered in awe about the guard's endurance, one admitting, "I can't even sit through a single class without fidgeting." For Jason, the lesson was personal. His earlier taunts about feather dusters gave way to a bowed head and a quiet realization of the guard's sacrifices. Mitchell's approach, choosing education over punishment, bridged the gap between ignorance and appreciation, leaving the group with a newfound respect for the soldiers behind the ceremony. As they left the courtyard, the once mocking teenagers carried a deeper understanding. Traditions aren't relics to ridicule, but living tributes to honor, discipline, and the human stories behind them. Jason Harrington's journey from arrogance to humility unfolded dramatically in the palace courtyard, where a failed prank against a royal guard became a catalyst for profound personal transformation. The 16-year-old from St. Bartholomew's Academy had arrived with a swagger, his designer shoes scuffing the historic stones as he mocked the guards as active duty mannequins in doll costumes. His exaggerated goose-stepping and taunts about their bearskin caps drew laughs from his friends, fueling his bravado as he accepted a 50-pound bet to make a guard break formation. Pretending to be distracted by his phone, Jason stepped into the guard's path, expecting to trip him. But guardsman David Mitchell's combat-honed instincts led to a subtle 3-inch adjustment in his march, leaving Jason to stumble and fall hard, his phone skidding across the stones. The courtyard erupted in laughter from his own friends, their phones capturing his humiliation, while tourists shook their heads in disapproval. Jason's initial reaction was anger, shouting, "He pushed me!" in a desperate bid to save face, but the guard's response shattered his defenses. Mitchell broke protocol, approaching with military authority to share his combat history. Tours in Afghanistan and Iraq, pulling comrades from burning vehicles, and the deep meaning behind the uniform Jason had ridiculed. "You didn't think," Mitchell said, his voice steady. "You saw the tradition and considered it something to mock rather than understand." Faced with the guard's quiet dignity and the weight of his words, Jason's arrogance crumbled. His head bowed. He managed a small, "I'm sorry," his voice uncharacteristically sincere. "I didn't know about the combat service, about what the uniform really means," he admitted, thanking Mitchell for explaining rather than having him arrested. The guard's choice of education over punishment, paired with Miss Bennett's assignment of a research project on military traditions, sealed Jason's transformation. He accepted the academic consequence without complaint, a stark contrast to his earlier defiance. As the group left, Jason even accepted Oliver's offer to help with the project, saying, "There's more to this history stuff than I thought." What began as a dare to disrupt a ceremony ended with a teenager humbled, his newfound respect for the guards and their traditions marking a shift from mockery to understanding. For Jason, the fall wasn't just physical. It was a descent into humility that lifted him toward growth, proving that even the most arrogant can change when met with wisdom and grace. In the sunlit palace courtyard, the power of discipline became the silent force that turned Jason Harrington's prank into a humbling lesson, showcasing the Royal Guard's unyielding strength in both ceremony and character. Guardsman David Mitchell, in his scarlet tunic and bearskin cap, embodied this discipline from the moment the St. Bartholomew's Academy students arrived. As Jason mocked the guards, calling them robots and goose-stepping in a crude imitation, Mitchell remained stoic, his eyes fixed forward, a testament to the legendary composure that wouldn't flinch even if a bomb went off. This discipline, honed through years of combat in Afghanistan and Iraq, was more than ceremonial. It was a survival skill. When Jason, spurred by a 50-pound bet, tried to trip him by stepping into his path while pretending to check his phone, Mitchell's training kicked in. His peripheral vision caught Jason's approach seconds earlier, and with a microscopic 3-inch adjustment to his march, imperceptible to the untrained eye, he sidestepped the interference, leaving Jason to stumble into empty air and fall hard on the ancient stones. The guard's formation continued unbroken, his polished boots maintaining their rhythmic cadence, not even glancing at the fallen teenager. This wasn't just physical discipline, it was mental fortitude, the same self-control Mitchell later described as essential to function under fire. When he broke protocol to confront Jason, standing exactly 3 feet away, his presence commanded silence without a raised voice. "The precision you mocked," he told the students, "is the same discipline that keeps soldiers alive in combat zones." His words revealed the depth behind the ceremony. The bearskin caps, weighing over 3 pounds, and shifts, standing motionless for 2 hours in any weather, were tests of endurance that mirrored battlefield readiness. For the 34 students who'd laughed at Jason's earlier taunts, Mitchell's quiet authority was a revelation. Even Jason's friends, who'd egged him on, whispered in awe, one admitting, "I can't even sit through a single class without fidgeting." Mitchell's discipline, whether in his perfect march, his subtle evasion, or his measured speech, proved a force more powerful than Jason's bravado, turning a moment of disrespect into a lesson in respect. As he resumed his post, his posture once again ceremonial perfection, the students saw not a statue, but a soldier whose discipline bridged centuries of tradition with the grit of modern warfare, leaving an indelible mark on their understanding. In the palace courtyard, what began as a disruptive prank by Jason Harrington and his St. Bartholomew's Academy classmates transformed into a teachable moment that left the entire group with a newfound respect for tradition and the soldiers who uphold it. The 34 teenagers had arrived rowdy, their navy blue blazers a stark contrast to the disciplined elegance of the Royal Guards, with Jason leading the charge, mocking the guards as active duty mannequins, and staging a goose-stepping parody that drew laughs from his friends. His attempt to trip a guard, part of a 50-pound bet, ended in his own humiliating fall. But the real lesson came when Guardsman David Mitchell broke protocol to address the group. Standing exactly 3 feet from Jason, Mitchell shared his combat history, tours in Afghanistan and Iraq, pulling comrades from burning vehicles, and the significance of the guards' duties, explaining how their bearskin caps, weighing over 3 pounds, honored victories like Waterloo. "History isn't just in books," he said, his voice steady. "It's alive in traditions like this." His decision to educate rather than punish turned the incident into a classroom without walls. Mitchell detailed the guards' rigorous selection process. Only combat-proven soldiers qualify, and the discipline behind their 2-hour motionless shifts, a reflection of battlefield readiness. The students, who'd arrived dismissive, now listened intently, their phones forgotten. Even Jason's friends, who'd egged him on, whispered in awe, one noting, "I can't even sit through a single class without fidgeting." Jason himself, humbled by his fall and Mitchell's words, apologized sincerely, his earlier arrogance replaced by genuine regret. Miss Bennett seized the moment, assigning a research project on military traditions, which Jason accepted without complaint, a stark change from his earlier defiance. As the group departed, Oliver offered to help Jason with the project, and to everyone's surprise, Jason agreed, saying, "There's more to this history stuff than I thought." The once rowdy teenagers left the courtyard quieter, their understanding deepened not through rules or punishment, but through Mitchell's willingness to share the human stories behind the uniform. For them, the guards were no longer statues, but symbols of sacrifice. Their march, a living tribute to centuries of service. This teachable moment, born from a moment of disrespect, proved that understanding can awaken respect, leaving a lasting impact on the students as they walked back to their bus, the palace, grounds fading behind them. For us seniors over 50, the story of Guardsman David Mitchell and Jason Harrington carries lessons that echo the wisdom we've gained through decades of life. First, it reminds us that respect isn't just owed, it's earned through sacrifice, like Mitchell's tours in Afghanistan, where he carried the weight of a 3-pound bearskin cap with pride. We've seen this in our own lives, whether honoring veterans at Memorial Day parades or appreciating the quiet dignity of those who serve. Second, it teaches that understanding bridges gaps. Jason's mockery turned to respect once he learned the guard's story, a lesson for us to look beyond appearances, maybe at the neighbor whose gruff exterior hides a heart of gold. Finally, Mitchell's choice to educate rather than punish shows the power of patience, a reminder to guide the younger generation with wisdom, not just rules, as we might with our grandkids. This story urges us to value tradition, seek understanding, and lead with grace, ensuring our legacy is one of respect and connection, no matter how modern the world becomes.